Kenneth Bay speaking there. Let's bring in Robert Kelly now from Busan in South Korea. He's a professor of political science and diplomacy at Busan National University. Thanks for joining us via Skype, Mr. Kelly. For these sorts of deals and releases to happen, there must have been something going on behind closed doors. It's hard to believe that the Americans wouldn't have agreed some sort of deal with the North Koreans over this.
Yeah, that tends to be my instinct as well. These things, of course, do not get revealed. The director of national intelligence, James Clapper, who was the one who negotiated this, said there was no quid pro quo. I don't know if we should take that at face value or not. But in the past, the North Koreans have gotten various concessions when they have held other people from other countries and stuff like that. It would surprise me if the Americans don't do that as well. If not, then this is a big signal that the North Koreans really want something from the United States, some kind of deal or renegotiation of something in the future.
Do you think the release of these two men is also part of a much wider plan by North Korea not to be too dependent on China, because China is really their strongest ally?
Yeah, I do, actually, because North Korea right now is economically not independent, right? I mean, it's economically dependent on others for aid. In the past, it has played the Americans off the Japanese, off the South Koreans, off the Chinese for aid, and it's been able to sort of live in the splits between those four countries around it. In the last 10 years or so, the Japanese, the South Koreans, and the Americans have really cooperated and just sort of froze North Korea out, which pushed it back on China. That gives China a great deal of leverage over North Korea. So if you're the North Koreans, what you want to do is sort of create openings with other states so that the Beijing doesn't have a lot of leverage over you, can't sort of tell you what to do, particularly on the nuclear program.
What do you make of a sense that some commentators have made on Al Jazeera throughout the time that these two men have been incarcerated, that North Korea is trying to soften its image about its human rights record, it's concerned about being referred to an international tribunal over its rights and also its nuclear program? All of these are huge issues for the North Koreans to juggle with, and they need to try and find a solution for them.
Yeah, that's right. And the Americans are the biggest one pushing the North Koreans hard on this, right? I mean, the Chinese and the Russians don't really care. The Europeans are pretty far away. I mean, the real country that pushes North Korea very hard, the biggest one that pushes North Korea hard, of course, is the Americans. If North Korea winds up before the International Criminal Court, like you said, it will be because the Americans have pushed it very hard. I do think the North Koreans are actually pretty afraid of this. In the past, they have generally ignored these kinds of things, but the UN report, the UN Human Rights Report on North Korea that came out about 8 months ago, I think has really changed a great deal. I mean, that didn't get a lot of press back at the time, but now I think it's really leading to a number of states in the UN sort of swinging their votes behind referring North Korea to the ICC. If they do, the Chinese will probably veto it, but the Chinese don't want to be standing out there all by themselves looking like they're providing cover for the North Koreans, so the North Koreans are probably trying to sort of remove this before it actually gets there, and this might be a signal to the Americans to please not do it.
Well, for the moment, Dr. Kelly, just stay with us. I just want to recap the story for our international viewers that are joining us here on Al Jazeera. And the breaking news story that's coming out of the United States is Kenneth Bay and Matthew Todd Miller, both incarcerated in North Korea, released by the North Koreans, and now landed in the United States just a short time ago, within the last hour, in Tacoma, in Washington state. The sister of Kenneth Bay spoke earlier, but this is what Kenneth Bay had to say just a short while ago.
So I just want to say thank you all for supporting me, lifting me up, and not forgetting me. At the same time, that also not forgetting the people of North Korea. And thank you for supporting my family as well. And I just also want to thank President Obama and all the people in State Departments. They're working tirelessly hard to get me released as well. And also, I'd like to thank the DPRK North Korean government as well, allowing me to go home and come home and be united with our family and for the loved people.
Well, of course, Kenneth Bay speaking there. Dr. Kelly, I'm coming back to you in Busan in South Korea. The Obama government at the moment has been under a lot of pressure, losing midterm elections. What sort of mileage will they get out of this release now? How can they spin it to make it look good for them?
Well, some kind of deal with North Korea, some kind of lasting deal with North Korea, particularly on the nuclear program, has been very elusive for the last 4 American administrations. If Obama can actually use this release as sort of an opening of a door to actually get the North Koreans to agree to some kind of, getting back into the non-proliferation treaty or getting back into nuclear inspections or something. I mean, if that could actually come through, and if the North Koreans held to it, which would be the big problem, that would be a huge coup for Obama. That would be a great legacy if you could actually nail down the North Koreans to an agreement that they would follow. So if that's where this is going, so much the better.
The administration was rather, you might say, secretive about the role of James Clapper,
Right.
the Director of National Intelligence. But I found in the statement of thanks that came from Kenneth Bay's sister, she made it very clear that he was integral in helping for his release, as was the Swedish embassy.
Right. Yeah, well, the Americans don't have any recognition. The United States doesn't recognize North Korea, so we don't have any kind of an embassy in Pyongyang or something like that. So American interests in North Korea get represented by the Swedes. This has been around for a while. My guess is with Director Clapper that there was, like I said before, there was probably some kind of discussion or negotiation behind the scenes. The North Koreans like to do things that way. They don't like to do open negotiations in front of the cameras. You know, North Korea obviously doesn't have an open media culture. So they want to talk to people behind closed doors. They want to sort of strike deals in this traditional, very kind of like realpolitik sort of way, behind closed doors and sort of secretive and, you know, kind of special arrangements and stuff.
Sure.
And that's where Director Clapper would come in as Director of National Intelligence. That's probably why.
Lovely. Well, there for the moment, I think we shall have to leave it, Dr. Kelly. Thank you for your insight. We'll be coming and following this story throughout the day. Dr. Robert Kelly there from the University of Busan in South Korea. Of course, that was our main